In the mid-18th century, Lisbon was a thriving city, often described as one of the most prosperous in Europe. The year was 1755, and Lisbon was not just the capital of Portugal, but a bustling hub of trade and cultural exchange. With its strategic location along the Atlantic Ocean, it was an essential port for trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Ships filled with goods from distant lands regularly docked in its harbor. Contributing to the city's wealth and influence, Lisbon's streets were lined with beautiful architecture, showcasing its role as a major cultural center. Grand palaces, churches, and squares adorned the city, making it a symbol of European elegance and power. The city's prominence was further solidified by its vibrant cultural scene, which included a flourishing arts community, theaters, and universities. Lisbon, in many ways, represented the peak of European civilization at the time. On the 1st of November, 1755, the city was preparing for the celebration of All Saints' Day, a day filled with religious observance, festivities, and joy. Little did the people of Lisbon know, this day of celebration would soon turn into one of unimaginable devastation. The peaceful city, known for its riches and architectural beauty, was about to experience an event that would change its course forever. The ground beneath Lisbon would soon tremble in a way no one could have predicted, marking the beginning of a disaster that would go down in history as one of the deadliest earthquakes ever recorded. At precisely around 9 a.m. on the 1st of November, 1755, the ground beneath Lisbon began to shake violently. The earthquake, estimated to have a magnitude between 8.5 and 9.0 on the Richter scale, struck with a force that no one could have anticipated. The tremors lasted for several minutes, but in that short amount of time, the destruction was immense. Buildings that had once been symbols of the city's wealth and culture crumbled to the ground, while the ground itself split open in some areas, swallowing everything in its path. As the city's structures collapsed, fires erupted across Lisbon. The tremors had severed gas lines and caused sparks from broken electrical wires, igniting countless fires that raged through the city. With many of the city's water sources disrupted by the earthquake, efforts to contain the fires were futile. The flames consumed what the earthquake hadn't already destroyed. But the disaster didn't end there. Just hours after the earthquake struck, the ocean itself seemed to turn against the city. A massive tsunami, triggered by the seismic activity beneath the ocean floor, slammed into the coast of Lisbon. Waves as high as 20 meters, approximately 65 feet, crashed into the city, sweeping away entire neighborhoods. The tsunami added another layer of devastation, drowning people who had survived the earthquake and leaving the city's waterfront completely destroyed. The death toll from the disaster was catastrophic, with estimates ranging from 60,000 to 100,000 people. Many lives were lost in the immediate aftermath of the earthquake and tsunami, while others perished from the fires that continued to ravage the city. Lisbon, once a bustling and vibrant metropolis, was reduced to rubble in just a few hours. The earthquake had transformed the city into a desolate wasteland, and the world would never forget the sheer power of nature that had been unleashed on that fateful day. In the wake of the devastation caused by the earthquake, Lisbon and the rest of the world were left in shock. The disaster not only destroyed the city, but also shook the very foundations of people's beliefs and perceptions of the world. For centuries, religious explanations had provided a framework for understanding natural disasters, and many believed that such catastrophic events were divine punishments for human sins. The tragedy of the Lisbon earthquake, however, led to a profound philosophical shift in how people viewed the forces of nature and their relationship with the divine. Many religious leaders at the time struggled to provide comforting answers to the people of Lisbon, as they had no explanation for why such a horrible event could happen to a city known for its devotion. This lack of answers sparked intense debate across Europe, as people began to question the traditional religious interpretations of disasters like earthquakes. The Lisbon earthquake forced individuals to confront uncomfortable questions about faith, morality, and the nature of divine will. At the same time, the earthquake also played a significant role in the rise of Enlightenment thinking, which was sweeping across Europe during the late 1700s. Philosophers like Voltaire and Jean-Jacques Rousseau began to challenge the established religious order and question the very idea of divine punishment. They argued that natural disasters were not the result of divine wrath, but rather the result of natural forces that could be understood through science and reason. In his famous poem, Poème sur le désastre de Lisbonne, Voltaire criticized the idea that such an event was caused by divine intervention, instead suggesting that earthquakes were simply a result of natural processes that needed to be studied and understood. This shift in thinking marked a turning point in how natural disasters were perceived and set the stage for the development of modern scientific explanations for earthquakes and other catastrophic events. The earthquake of 1755 had inadvertently sparked a new era of intellectual inquiry, where the idea of divine providence began to give way to rational, scientific explanations. It was a crossroads in history, where the traditional religious worldview was increasingly challenged by the emerging ideas of the Enlightenment, forever altering how people would view natural disasters and the world around them. In the aftermath of the devastation caused by the Lisbon earthquake, the city was left in ruins. Amidst the destruction, a remarkable story of resilience and rebuilding began. The task of restoring the city fell to Sebastião José de Carvalho e Melo, the Marquis de Pombal, who was appointed by King José I to lead the reconstruction efforts. Pombal, a visionary reformer, quickly set to work, determined to not only rebuild Lisbon but to create a more modern, safer city that would be better prepared for future disasters. Under Pombal's leadership, the city's reconstruction was approached with a focus on efficiency, practicality, and most importantly, safety. One of the major innovations during this time was the creation of new building codes designed to make structures more resistant to earthquakes. These codes mandated that buildings be constructed with sturdier materials, like stone and iron, and with reinforced walls that could withstand the tremors of future earthquakes. The new designs also included wider streets and open spaces to prevent the rapid spread of fires, which had been one of the most devastating consequences of the previous disaster. In addition to the new architectural standards, the rebuilding process was also shaped by Pombal's desire to create a city that was more organized and accessible. The layout of the city was carefully planned with large straight streets that allowed for better traffic flow and easier movement of people and goods. The reconstruction was not just about rebuilding what had been lost, but about creating a forward-thinking urban center that would stand as a symbol of recovery and resilience. The rebuilding efforts were not without challenges, however. The sheer scale of the destruction made it difficult to restore the city to its former glory, but through meticulous planning, efficient use of resources, and a determination to modernize, Lisbon began to take shape as a new city. By the end of the 1750s, Lisbon had risen from the ashes of the earthquake, emerging as a more resilient and forward-thinking city than it had been before the disaster. The Marquis de Pombal's leadership during this period left a lasting legacy on Lisbon, both in terms of its architecture and urban planning. The earthquake of 1755, while devastating, ultimately led to the transformation of Lisbon into a more modern, safer, and more resilient city. The recovery of Lisbon from the ruins of disaster is a testament to human strength and ingenuity, demonstrating that even in the face of unimaginable loss, the spirit of a city and its people can endure. The aftermath of the Lisbon earthquake reverberated far beyond the city's walls, leaving a lasting impact on both scientific research and cultural understanding. As one of the deadliest earthquakes in history, it not only changed the landscape of Lisbon, but also altered the way the world approached natural disasters. The tragedy of 1755 pushed advancements in seismic research and the development of earthquake-resistant building practices, setting the stage for future generations to better understand and mitigate the destructive power of earthquakes. The earthquake marked the beginning of a more systematic approach to studying earthquakes. In the years that followed, the scientific community began to explore new methods of understanding seismic activity. Theories of plate tectonics, developed centuries later, would trace their origins back to the desire to understand the causes of the Lisbon earthquake. As seismic monitoring techniques advanced, it became possible to predict and prepare for future events in a way that had never been possible before. Beyond the scientific impact, the Lisbon earthquake had a profound influence on art, literature, and philosophy. The tragedy became a central theme in works of literature, particularly in the writings of the Enlightenment thinkers who were profoundly affected by the event. Voltaire's work, Candide, was directly inspired by the earthquake, using it as a way to critique the philosophical optimism of the time. The earthquake also shaped the development of European thought, prompting a shift towards a more rational, evidence-based approaches to understanding the world. The visual arts, too, were shaped by the events of 1755. Paintings and engravings of the disaster depicted the destruction of Lisbon and its people's suffering, capturing the scale and human cost of the earthquake. These works help to preserve the memory of the disaster and serve as a reminder of the fragility of human civilization in the face of nature's overwhelming power. Perhaps one of the most significant legacies of the Lisbon earthquake was the shift it caused in how people viewed the relationship between humans and the natural world. The destruction prompted a rethinking of religious interpretations, as well as a growing confidence in the ability of science and reason to explain the forces of nature. It was a turning point in history, where the old worldviews were challenged and the foundation for modern seismic science was laid. The earthquake's influence continues to be felt today, as it remains one of the most studied natural disasters in history. The lessons learned from the tragedy of 1755 have informed modern earthquake preparedness and building techniques, and the event has become a crucial part of both European history and the broader understanding of how natural disasters shape human society. The legacy of the Lisbon earthquake is not just about the destruction it caused, but also about the resilience, knowledge, and progress it inspired in its wake. It serves as a reminder that while nature's power is immense, humanity's capacity to adapt and rebuild is equally remarkable.